Good evening. How are you?
Okay. I'm not too bad. Not too bad. And you?
My brain is recovering. So I had an exam to pass for work, which is what's consumed my past 3 months, and I passed it. So now I actually have to do proper work, which I'm actually looking forward to.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Did
good.
you have birthday last?
Oh, yeah, and I had a birthday last week. Yeah.
Oh, what?
Thank you very much for my present. Appreciate
I
it.
had to practice the whole morning to sing, so I wouldn't do it here, but I practiced the whole morning.
You can if you want.
Okay. So today we have a special guest, old friend of mine. She's an amazing coach. I'm happy to introduce Rebecca to our audience and to you, Monil. So as we said before, let's grill her for the next hour, and let's see how she gets through, because she's a little bit sick, but it won't matter. She has her tea and she's ready. And here's Rebecca.
Hi, guys. I do.
Right to me.
I'm ready for grilling. Let's do it.
Okay. Meat or
Sorry, that's...
Yeah, maybe. Okay. Yeah. Something to have a conversation about that.
You could not have said it with the bit like, I'm ready for a grilling. Okay, then.
Anyway. Oh,
Such it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we do again an R-rated version. So I need to do the explicit rating in later again. So we had Rebecca. We had a couple of episodes where we were cursing so much.
got the little the disclaimer.
Yeah. That's basically me, by the way. I'm not afraid of the F-bomb, just.
We can try this one a little clean. How about that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Good.
So, Rebecca, who are you?
Who am I? I like that you start with the small questions. There are an infinite number of ways to start that, but maybe since we talk a little bit about the things that are interesting to us and what sparks our curiosity, and for me, a big part of that is storytelling and understanding how the stories that we tell ourselves, both internally and the stories that we're telling out into the world, shape how we experience this life and how engaged and vital we feel when it comes to the life that we're living. So for me, I've had a nice meandering path that's taken me to this point. But I love people. I love to understand how we tick and what it is that drives us and excites us. And so and I find that storytelling is an incredible medium to play around with this. So right now, that's one of my biggest excitement.
And you have your own company in architecture?
Inner architecture, exactly. Because my background is actually as an interior architect. And what I started realizing is that there's this story that I love to tell about a lot of companies that I used to work with, and they would all come and they would say, make us like Google, right? Like, create us a space like Google. We want to be like Google. And it came up so many times that I would end up having this spiel ready to say, we can put a slide in your reception area. We can make you 10 game rooms. We can put all of these different things. But if you don't set up the culture or the identity of the company, then the space can support, but it can't create. And over the years, what I realized is it's exactly the same with us on an individual level. The space that we're in, the things that often we're told by the whole world of place that we live, the money that we make, the partner that we have, all of these different factors will be what fulfills us. And in all honesty, they can support our joy, but they can't change the identity and the culture that we build for ourselves. That's our responsibility.
You ready for the big question?
Oh, come on, let's bring it on.
What?
What am I? Okay, all right, let me play with this a little bit in my head. Oh, I can think of infinite possibilities here, but right now let's keep it on this. I'm a storyteller. Let's play with this.
And you helped out about their story.
Yeah, and I think that's the what, but behind it, the thing that I love is I love the moment that as I'm working with people or teams or whatever it might be, there's this moment of realization of, I'm bigger than the story that I've been telling myself. And isn't it amazing that when I change my story, actually my possibilities and the opportunities that I have expand. And so it's easy. And storytelling is one of these things that right now is a beautiful buzzword. I'm very happy that it's out there. But I find so much of it is actually the stories that we're telling ourselves. I call it story weaving. So it's the stories that we weave within our minds before any word ever comes out into the world through our mouth. And those are the stories that have the potential to expand us, to make us excited about life. And they're also the stories that can suck life from us.
Yeah, and they're very much limiting. So
yeah.
I love that you when you started with corporates that you mentioned in the past it was really like that. So many companies said, "Oh yeah, we want to be the next Google. So can we have a culture like Google? Can we do those kind of things?" I think at the moment I witness that many companies come and they say, "Oh, we heard that other buzzword. We need to have a purpose," which I think is quite fun, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that every company needs a purpose. It's good if they have one, especially in terms of crisis, and people know why they are there. But if they come up and have a purpose on their website or have a purpose written on a nice PowerPoint slide and they don't live it, because if they have a purpose, they need to make any decision based on that purpose.
Yeah. Well, I love that, because one of the things that I see more and more is I think it's a lot less about purpose and to be clear on identity. And it's the same on an individual level, right? If you think about, I love this, it's one of the things from James Clear from Atomic Habits. You know, he talks about kind of this progression of at the center, there's identity, then there's habits or processes, and outside is outcomes. And what most of us are doing and what the world has kind of taught us is that you focus on the outcomes. What are the goals that I have? What are the things that I want to achieve? And then you determine what processes you need to take to get there. And then that shapes how you see yourself. But when you flip that on its head, it's an insanely powerful thing, because then you start asking the question, no matter what the external circumstances, how do I want to show up? How do I show up in any circumstance? And it changes the dialogue and it changes the processes and the habits that we start to create for ourselves, because they're coming from a very different place than just based on goals. They're coming on, no matter what the goal is, how do I want to show up in this world? And maybe that's, I want to focus on loving on as many people as I possibly can, or they can be very abstract, but then in the moment, I can ask myself in any particular moment, what the things that I want to live out, what would that look like in this moment? And it creates a very interesting dynamic. So I think a lot of companies would benefit very much from understanding their identities and then how their employees' identities fit into and play with the company identity.
Especially, where are the synergies, right, between them?
So I'm curious, and I think this is one of the things I want to use this platform for is, I listen to a lot of podcasts, as I'm sure we all do, and we all come across these famous people, whether you see them on Instagram or YouTube or on stage or whatever. And so what we're seeing is the actualization of someone. What we don't really get is what was their journey, or what were the pivotal moments in their journey to get. Now, you've been doing what you've been doing, what I would say, for a reasonably long time, right?
Yeah.
Or a very long time, depending on kind of what time construction.
Real.
What brought you to that?
So
what brought you to where you are today? What made you think? And by the way, I'm not afraid to answer any question I ask you. I don't know if I'll necessarily hear an answer, but yeah, I'm curious, because people may be struggling when we talk about identity, right? What is a company? Company is a collection of souls, right? So there's our identity, there's our authenticity, and then there is whatever we label the corporate identity, right? But that doesn't exist without the souls within it. And I think sometimes there is a disconnect, like, what's our company culture? Rather than think of that, what do our people value? What do we all have in common? And actually, of what we all have in common, what do we want to get to? What's next? Who do we bring in so that we have cultural add, not just cultural fit? Because reality is you need both. You just have cultural fit, you're going to go nowhere, right? In fact, there's an odd to say you might get left behind.
Yeah.
Anyway, long question, long qualification. But yeah, what brought you?
If I'm really dead honest, it was a number of identity crises, right? So, I mean, isn't that the nice thing that every now and then I've got a deep-seated belief that generally I feel like we come to understanding ourselves more deeply through grace. I don't know what it is that makes me very curious to dive into the things that I want to dive into, to step into certain strange and interesting situations that challenge me. That's part of my makeup that, I've fostered it, yes, but I think by grace, this is my personality that I have that wants to dive into these things. And also by grace, a lot of the identity crises that I've had along the way have opened the doors to the awareness that who I believe myself to be is malleable, right? That my identity is not set in stone. And there are times when things became very concrete for me and I believed, this is who I am. And to have that stripped away, either by choice or sometimes not by choice, all of a sudden you have this moment where you're kind of laying bare in front of the altar that you used to worship of yourself and the identity, and then all of a sudden that's gone. And I feel like in one moment it's an incredible gift because you see what remains beyond the story, if you will. But at the same time, it's incredibly humbling because you recognize, wow, how much and I'll keep it personal, how much do I, as this little human, need that stability and that something to grasp onto in order to make me feel safe. And so I think that that's been my process. Is I've had one was just moving to a new country where I didn't understand the language at first when I first moved and feeling very out of place. And language is probably the thing that has been one of my greatest assets, the capacity to communicate. And that was incredibly humbling to all of a sudden be reduced to the vocabulary of a 4 or 5-year-old for the first months, right? And all of a sudden to have that strength stripped away and to recognize, okay, so what else is there or what remains when these things are gone? And so I think if I look back, each one of those little moments where something was stripped away brought me to more clarity of who I am at my core, of how flexible our identities actually are, but then also the capacity to play with it and to recognize that when we take on these identities by choice, it's actually quite fascinating because then we get to choose what is it that actually creates space for me to play in this life instead of what restricts me and what says, no, I can't do that.
I love that. And the survival mechanism in us usually makes us dwell on the latter, not the former. So what took you from Louisiana to Switzerland? That's quite a shift, not just in terms of mileage, but,
I had a few stops in between. So I was in Boston for about 7 years, in the UK for a little while, back to Boston, and then to Switzerland. And I came over actually with my lovely ex-husband. We had the opportunity we were in the UK for a while and just absolutely fell in love with Europe. We both felt more at home here than we did back in Louisiana. It wasn't a good or bad, right or wrong. It was more just, wow, this sparks our curiosity, and we were both excited to try it out. And we decided, okay, we're going to do this, but if we do it, we don't do the little 2-year stint. We commit to 5 years because we want to dive in. And so that was what we ended up doing. We're still very, very close, still one of my favorite people. In fact, he and his new wife are my top dog sitters. They love him almost more than I do sometimes, I think. So, but these are also the ways that that whole relationship is a funny one, because there are so many people that go, well, that's not how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be a difficult thing. And actually, I love that our relationship is very unique. He's family to me, and it feels beautiful to have family here in Switzerland. Now it's just an expanded family.
That's awesome. That's really nice to hear, actually. It's really nice to hear.
I agree. Now, and what about you guys? Unless you've already talked about it in the past, what brought you two together? What are your origins?
Do you want to take this, or do you want me to?
Just go ahead.
So
I
need to get a picture of my mindset now, because inner architect is very relevant, I think.
Hey.
So I'm in the middle of getting divorced, and due to circumstances, I found myself very resentful for the past 2 years. It'll be close to 3 years in March, right? And it's not about the relationship. The relationship for me personally was over many years ago. We were kind of cohabiting in the same house as parents. Sadly, though, that was my journey that had started. I think different people have different journeys, and maybe, I don't know, maybe the grieving of the relationship started later for my ex. I don't know. She's a wonderful mother to our 2 little girls. So anyway, a lot of this was sitting in my body, and decisions that had been taken. Once you separate, what you have to appreciate is that everyone's kind of looking out for themselves, and they're not, whether you're the parent or not, they're not really going to look at your best interests. They're only going to look at their own, right? And that's human nature, right? And this is just pure hearsay out of my head. So then in January, yes, Tony Robbins had been in my life, never really engaged. Then I started engaging, did UPW virtual, and mine coming up as it naturally does, because Facebook and everything is always listening to what's on our phone. So then I signed up to Mind Valley. Then I ended up getting on to CBC, so certified business coach, same as Mike. And then we had Super Coach event in Tallinn. So we all came together. That was a beautiful 2 or 3 days. Mike was going around with his camera, doing his production, filmy, director, movie making, Steven Spielberg thing. And took some great pictures. And then we came back, and then we were just talking on WhatsApp, and we had this discussion, and we said, we should maybe try recording this. And little did I know about Mike's multifaceted talents. I mean, people are like, wow, your podcast is wicked. It's like, yeah, I just basically show up. Mike makes it. Yeah, I'm kind of like, I'm like that temperamental brat that just kind of turns up, talks for an hour, then rides off into the sunset, right?
I think that underselling yourself a bit, but all right.
Well, yeah. Look, but in terms of how it's brought to us, it's mainly Mr. Furman that does that. So, of which I'm grateful, because I think we don't both need to do the same things, right? And I think actually we seek so much confirmation bias because it gives us external validation that we don't really do the things that we're scared of. We don't really talk to the people that we're scared of talking to. And for me personally, I can only speak for myself. The fear doesn't come from, oh my God, like, I don't see eye to eye with Rebecca. What's she going to say? The fear for me comes from, I don't see eye to eye with this person. Like, what the hell might I say to them that, may cause something catastrophic, right?
Huh.
But I think that, to your point, there's a space in which you can play in, which once you go on this journey and you realize how big and little you are at the same time. And what I mean by that is I am enough, right? So that's the big, I'm enough for me. Everything I have is within me. But then also in the grand scheme of everything and the whole connectedness of everyone and the quantum field, I am little. And that's not a derogatory little. It's a
humbling, beautiful exploration of just that you can hold the paradox, right? I am my entire world, right? Because this is the body that I inhabit. But when I look at the expanse of everything that has been and everything to come, understandable, I'm less than a grain of sand in all of the universe, all of the cosmos. So, and that's okay. Like, that doesn't mean I'm insignificant because each part matters. And I just happen to be a little bit more focused on mine.
Yeah, and that's okay, right? I don't know, Mike, do you have a different spin to that story, or?
No, but it was very nice to hear it from you. So I think you I didn't do so many pictures in Tawil, but no, in where did we met?
Tallinn.
Tallinn.
This is, if we were a couple, let me do this. If we were a couple, Mike, and you did not, I was going to use a swear word, but if you did not damn well remember where we met.
Oh, hey, sorry, it's Saturday. I'm 2 weeks now. Sorry, it's Sunday. See, I'm 2 weeks on my own with 2 kids and a dog. My wife had to go to Indonesia. She got a call. Oh, that was our recording 2 weeks ago. I came back from the recording. She was sitting on the couch crying because her mom called that they had to bring her dad in the ICU, and her dad passed away on Tuesday. So she flew over on Monday to Indonesia, and now she's there. And I'm 2 weeks totally on my own with dogs. Okay, teenage kids. So, I mean, it's not like little kids anymore. Doing household, doing everything, doing grocery, trying to build a business. So I'm all over the place at the moment. So, sorry that I forgot where we met. But if they would put us together as a couple, I really would like to have the balcony from the Muppet Show and just sitting there and commenting on everything. I think that would be awesome.
I think one guy's good.
Well, first thing, sorry for your wife's loss. And I know it's tough for the family and the kids. And actually, I know you're all over the shop, but bless you for taking on everything, right? And you do this out of love. I know this is never a conscious decision, but that doesn't mean we don't celebrate these things, right?
It's
so
sure, well done. You just need to, now you just need to be there. And it's all good. And I mean, Rebecca and you two both know my story. So, and I already shared it here on the podcast. And for the ones who still haven't seen that, so since Friday, Paula, who was also already here on the call, and myself, we're co-authors in an anthology book, which is called No to My Family, This Is My Legacy. Was released on Amazon last Friday. And I was also very much grateful that I could actually just put all that stuff together. And in February, similar like you were in a specific moment of your life, I wasn't the same. So I just quit my job. I didn't want to be in that corporate environment anymore because I didn't feel myself. So I was looking into the mirror and I just thought, there's a stranger looking back. This is not me. I just need to do something else. And I had no idea what to do. And then it was also, following Tony Robbins. All of a sudden, Mind Valley popped up on your Facebook timeline or Insta timeline. And I never signed up so quick for a coaching course. And then I did the certified business coach there. And then we met. And like Manil said, so I was in the gym. I was just running in the morning. And all of a sudden, he stopped my running because I'm always watching a movie while running on a treadmill in the gym. And when a phone call comes in, the movie is stopped. And then I just said, Maria, okay, take the phone call. I stepped from the treadmill. And then we had a very nice and also kind of deep conversation. And I still know I was sitting outside. I stepped outside and I was sitting in the sun at the Zurich Lake because the gym has lake access. And I was sitting outside and I just thought, okay, hey, this is actually a cool conversation. Why shouldn't we have those conversations publicly? And that's how it happens. And then we just said, okay, let's make that podcast. Let's find a name that fits to the both of us and somehow resembles our beautiful look. And and then we start that. And we don't care if someone is watching or not. We just talk about us and what is going on in our head. And
like chemistry between you, which is fun.
And we just invite some nice people we like. And if this is becoming a fun podcast, it's good. And otherwise, it's just a cool podcast for us. So that's also good.
Super nice. Super nice.
So in terms of inner architecture, so just be yourself and just have that open space where you can have an authentic discussion with someone.
Yeah. And I love it because both of you were talking about this, and I think it's such a powerful aspect to play with is the capacity to reinvent your stories. Because that's exactly what it is when certain things get stripped away, when it's partner or, whatever it might be of the role that you were playing in the company. Again, even if they're by choice, these are moments where we have to start changing the story about how we see ourselves. And in those moments, I find at least, it's very humbling. It can be very scary because sometimes it's wide open of, okay, so what do I do now? Sometimes there's so many options. Other times there's so few that you're like, okay, what am I doing here? But these are those moments where I think developing certain capacities within ourselves to be curious, to be able to reframe things and to say like, okay, to really ask, to remember that we have choice is one of the greatest gifts that I think. How do I choose to play with this? And then also to get very curious about what might this mean? Because I think at first glance, there's a whole lot of things that the world says, this is bad, you should be afraid, this is scary. And yes, that is always one part of the story, right? And the way that I see it is that there's this full spectrum of there's everything from this is total crap, I'm behaving myself, this is total crap, the most amazing opportunity that I've ever received. And to be honest, that full spectrum exists, right? And then it's about how we determine what is the story that I'm telling myself. And for me, I often tell people it's not about denying the crappy parts. It can be to acknowledge that, but it's to recognize that the story that you focus on the most is the one that grows. And so if you're focusing only on, man, how crap is this? Then that inevitably sucks the life out of you, versus if you go, okay, yeah, there are parts of this definitely crappy. What is the opportunity? how can I choose to create something from this? And again, I think one of the things that storytelling sometimes gets this vibe of, talking about, when I was in Africa and I was riding on the back of the white rhino. It's not always about these grand stories. Very often it's the small, very minimalistic aspects that we recognize, the little stories that sometimes are just one sentence. Man, it's hard, right? If that's the story that I have developed in my mind, guess what I see everywhere? I see all of the different places that life is hard. Whereas if I think life is here for my growth, again, one sentence story, but it completely changes the way that I approach the world around me. So, yeah.
And the way how you approach the world around me will define the world around you, right? It's just like that. It's actually when I just mentioned where I had to contribute with my legacy in that book. It was point one of my key message that I would like to give to the world, which means that if life gives you a challenge or something is happening, see it as a opportunity to learn and embrace it, even if it's crappy or even if it hurts. Because when it hurts, if you put yourself 2 years in advance or something, the pain might not be anymore, but there will be growth.
Yeah.
And that's the way how you need to take challenges and not try to escape. And I wouldn't take myself out of that. It took me 47 years to on one hand embrace it, or let's say consciously embrace it, and not just, oh, now I had to learn it, because otherwise it repeats as often until you learn, right? It's
so more, right?
Right. And so to really embrace it as, hey, that's how it is, and let's what one's life tell me? What is the lesson that I need to listen to? And if I ask this question, it's not about the pain. Pain is necessary, because otherwise you wouldn't move.
Yeah.
But it's more about developing and process and the process itself, and then it's nice. And so I fully agree with what you said, and I think you put it in very, very nice words. And this is what I also see that the world is lacking quite a lot. I mean, if I look back in my past, for instance, I mean, I was first living in Spain, then living in Germany again, then in the Netherlands, then a while in Indonesia, then in Switzerland. Always it was just an escape. It was just, and the same situation that got me, that made me to move, happened over and over again. It was always the same thing. And it had all to do with inner trauma. And as long as you don't face that, and as long as you just don't embrace that chance or that opportunity to grow, it will repeat over and over again. And all the let's say relocation ideas, or I distract myself with some other stuff, or maybe I start a new relationship or anything. Everything that you do is just an escape mechanism, and it will probably help you for a while, but then the same stuff comes back.
Sure. And I mean, this part of it as well, when we're so stubborn. I mean, some of us are more stubborn than others. I will claim I am incredibly stubborn, which life comes back and smacks me again and again and again. But when I really learn it, man, I learn my lessons. But in that way, and this is one of the places that I again think grace plays in, is that nothing is wasted. Like, guaranteed, how many times that you experience that same thing coming back again and again, what you know now to be true is anchored through your entire past, So there is no doubt in your mind. Whereas some people learn the lesson the first time. I'm always blown away by these people. I'm like, wow, you're amazing. I think that's incredible. I am not nearly
not that dude. I need to get slapped a couple of times. Sorry to interrupt, what just came up for me when you were both talking then was I was getting some new lighty uppy Christmas decorations for the girls, and I was out and I thought, right, I'm going to have a date with myself. I'm going to have a coffee. I'm in this queue for half an hour and I overhear this lady and her mum, and the lady's talking about her teeth and the dentist and whatever else, and the mum's talking about whatever else. And then somehow we got to talking, and you got to remember, like, this queue was about 30 minutes long, right? So they sat down, I sat down, and as I was leaving, the mum says, oh, my daughter's going through a breakup. She's got 2 kids, and I worry about this and I worry about that. I've got diabetes, all this sort of stuff. And I said, well, look, I've got an autoimmune condition that I fixed. And the biggest thing is, assuming that your diet and your exercise and your stress management and your sleep quality is all there, the biggest thing, that needs to be there all the time. But the biggest thing that needs to happen is that shift up here, right? A mindset shift. And that shift doesn't happen until a couple of things happen. To pain, right? Because there is no incentive to, right, in the human brain to change till you have. Then it's feeling the pain, then it's accepting the pain, and it's effectively going through the grief cycle with pain, right? There's resistance to, bless you.
Thank you. Yes.
Then there's an it and all of the stuff. And one of the things she said, she goes, oh yeah, I know I'm pretty lucky. I walk through and I see people sleeping on the pavement and no one should sleep like that. And the thing, I looked at her and it just ended up being a coaching conversation. I said, can I offer something to you? And she said, absolutely. I said, there's a danger that we go the other way. We're so busy looking at the gifts in our lives, right? And then comparing that to the gifts that other people don't have, that we almost try and dilute our reality. I said to her, what you feel is real. What you feel is a result of the worry and the trauma that you may have had earlier in life. So just because someone is there that doesn't have what you have, that doesn't distill what you feel, that stuff is still real. No, nothing is good or bad. It's the energy we attach to it, right? For me, that is such a hard concept to let go of. And so now if I see that person, I don't get grateful for what I have. I'm grateful every day now for everything I have, and I wake up and I journal about it. But what I do, I ask the question of how can I serve? So if they need some money to get the next fix to survive the -10 night and get rid of the demons in their head for like a bit because of what's happened to them, who am I to judge that they can't have that? It's a very controversial thing because most people will see people with an addiction and go, well, I'm not going to fuel their habit. And I go, well, if you're not going to fuel their habit, then sit down and have a conversation and find out what happened to them. Yeah. Because until you know what happened to them, you are in absolutely no position to make a judgment for them.
Yeah. And even after.
Yeah.
But I love that you say that, because I think it's this, every time I'm stuck with something, I focus in on the paradoxes, right? Because the black and white thinking, it's great for certain things. When we need to make a decision, it's called draw a line in the sand and move, right? But it's also the acknowledgement that everything can serve us, but anything, when you deny the other parts of it, can end up being something that actually throws us out of balance. You can I can look at someone else and go, you know what, wow, that reminds me that I'm insanely grateful to have a warm place to sleep. But to use that to negate my experiences doesn't serve me, right? So it's how not to get overwhelmed by the fact that you could look at infinite perspectives, right? And that could be really overwhelming, but how to play with it enough to just recognize, hey, how do I find the balance here? Because I think it's beautiful that you shared with this woman, hey, it doesn't mean to negate your experience. It's important that you feel what you feel. You can use someone else to help you not get sucked down into the spiral of, oh my gosh, now I can't think about anything else. But at the same time, to just acknowledge what is, I mean, that's from Byron Katie, loving what is. I think it's one of the most powerful things, because it's just, as long as we're fighting against, as long as we resist what is, this is the definition of suffering. And Mike, you were talking about pain. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is a choice. You know, and I can remember hearing that once and I was like, oh, I don't know what I think about that. But suffering is also just stories. That shouldn't happen. This shouldn't be the way that it is. I shouldn't be experiencing it in this way. You are. And that's where you are right now. The beautiful thing about the present moment is that it's pregnant with the potential of all of the different options that you have moving forward, right? So the moment now is inevitable. You can't change how it is. And at the same time, it's completely full with the potential to take your next step. And in some ways, I will say that's one of the crazy powers of storytelling, is that you can also, in many ways, go back and change the past or change how you experience past experiences by looking back and going, wow, had that not happened, then I wouldn't have developed this skill to be able to X, Y, Z. And so I can also take painful experiences from my past and retell a story, kind of like a little voodoo, retell a story that completely changes how I see that past experience, which in some cases can be night and day of a flip-flop.
Totally. Yeah. Because when you reflect back and you see that, I mean, I'm incredibly grateful for all the things that happened to me, because I wouldn't be there now where I am at the moment without having gone through that. Was that nice? No. Was it sometimes the emotional roller coaster? Yes. But I fully believe right now I'm exactly where I need to be. Full period. So yeah, it's just like that. And coming back to that mother, what strikes me is, and I think this is a typical thing, that you as a parent, and I speak there also for myself, you try to protect your children and you worry about them. And I try to get it out somehow, out of my system, because this shouldn't be your role, because they have their own life. You are just, they won't be there to live your life. You are just there to hold their hand, but not even guide them. You can give them proposals, but in a specific age, they don't want to listen to those, right? Because I mean, who as a teenager wanted to listen to the stuff that the parents told them? So they need to make their own experiences, good and bad. And if something bad happens, then you just need to be there. But you can't be there and say, okay, I want to protect her, I don't want to do this, don't do this, or something like that, because it won't help them to grow.
It's funny you say that, Mike. I have to buy a book called Conscious Parenting by Dr. Shafali. I can't remember her last name. She's well known. Oprah just interviewed her on her podcast, and it's, that's very much what she said, is that when we tell our kids what to do, we're coming from a place of ego. And actually, I was in the shower, I was listening to this, and the epiphany I had was, we all use this line as parents of, our job is to love our kids and make them feel safe. And we default to that position of safety, meaning keeping them from harm. And for me, that's not safety. No. And I wish I knew this, but, my eldest is now 9 years old. I wish I knew this earlier, but I'm grateful that I know it now. This is going to shape how I parent her and her sister. My job as a father or as a parent is to make them feel safe. Now, safety obviously there are some inherently bad things in the world, right? Okay. But safety is the safety for them to be who they are, for them to show up in the world how they are meant to show up, for them to be unencumbered, for them to be okay with who they are and what they come across. That is safety. And if we can all do that for our kids, I think there is a ton of crap that will disappear from this world. But let's make no mistake. Let's not kid ourselves. This is hard stuff, right?
Yeah, it's really
hard.
I mean, because I regularly fail in those things, but I'm aware. So I'm also aware of sailing, and that's already good, right? So, but I also see, and I see that not only with my kids, I see it with also with many other parents. I mean, you're totally right, and it's you need to make them feel safe and not keep them away from harm.
Yeah,
That is really
man. I can't speak from personal experience because I don't have kids, but I can remember hearing that and thinking actually when I apply it to myself from Esther Perel. She was also making that same kind of comment of safety is the fact that your child feels safe enough to wander out and risk. And the safety factor is that they know that if they fall flat on their face that they can return, right, to a safe haven. But it's not that they're so safe that they're in a prison, that they can never leave, they can never go out and explore. In that, yes, of course, they are safe, but they're not living. And so what I hear both of you saying is how to find that balance of providing that space that's safe, but that enables that safety for them to express themselves, to create themselves as their own individual people, which, man, I can only imagine how intense that is as a parent.
The intensity for me is not as a parent, because I'm grateful that I have access to these resources. And, you know, if you think back to our parents' generation, there was no podcast, there was no book, there was no, you know, we have access to so much information so easily. I don't have to go out of my way to a library and read 1,000 books, right? Like you did, let's say 70, 80 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So we also have to be cognizant of the fact that when we talk about our previous generations, not to chastise them and go, well, why the hell didn't you? They didn't know. They did their best, right? But we are knowing our best. And the key is not in what we do. The key is in the awareness. The failure is the path to success. The more I'm convinced, the more I go on with work, with business building and whatever, I have to fail. Because in the failure, there is a gift.
Yeah.
Right? There's always a gift. And so then it's about managing expectations, whether as a parent or as a business owner or a podcaster or whatever, right? Or just even as an employee. Embrace the failure. Learn from it. Take it. Package it up. Do something with it, right? Do something positive, because that is a legacy that if we all do that stuff, that's what changes the world.
Take that. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
I feel like I just ended it.
Great round. Just checking the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost there. I really love the conversation. I could actually continue. We should do part 2 of it because it really like the conversation. So the year's almost over. What are your big plans, Rebecca, for next year? So where do you want to be end of 2024?
Oh, I'm in this process right now of doing some new visioning. I get the feeling that the past months leading up and also this new year will be a rather restructuring time. So what my goal is less of a focused, this is the outcomes that I want, but it's more that I would like to show up with certain things on a consistent basis. So show up with an open heart, but a very determined, exploratory mentality coming into what is this new year. I think that the world is shifting massively. And so it's also just to remember this power to continue to learn is one of probably the greatest gifts that we can give ourselves, is just that we remain malleable, because how many times will this happen? I think more and more and more that we learn something, we start doing something, and then either a new technology or a new company or whatever comes in and kind of wipes out a whole category, and you're going, okay, so what's next? And I don't foresee that happening necessarily with what I'm doing, but I think that this is the world that we're living in. It's becoming more and more changeful. And I think that can be scary, and that can also be an incredible gift. And so that's what I would like to bring into this new year, is to see this changefulness, to see everything that's coming in as opportunities, and to get really curious about what it might look like to play in some new realms and to experience some new things. So yeah.
Beautiful. Nice. Good luck with it.
Now, yeah, sounds amazing. I think also conscious of the fact that, this can be a stressful time of year for a lot of people, both with and without families, people that are alone, people that are with lots of people but still feel alone. What would you say to those people who are struggling right now, who are listening to this going, oh, well, it's all right for these three, they've done this and done that. And this is why I like to ask the uncovering question of, how did you get here? What was the bad that happened to get you here? Because I think sometimes there's a danger people just see you and think, well, their life's all right,
Oh man, I would love for people just to see the little glimpses into the totally crap parts of, and just go, oh, nobody's having it just super easy. But I think two things that pair together that I would say is, if you're in that season, you're going through a tough time. One, experience what would I like to be experiencing right now, and think small. Meaning, it's a time when I think a lot of times people are thinking, oh my gosh, what did I accomplish this year? I didn't do everything that I wanted. And a lot of times we start to look at the facts and the figures and all of these different things. And what I would say is, the experiences are so valuable to recognize. And so, for example, one of the things that I would say is, an experience that I often value very highly for me is the experience of feeling connection. And so if I desire to experience connection in this moment, when I pay attention to that consciously, I know that there are times when unconsciously I start reverting to vices, right? I want to feel connected. So, I know that I can just completely disconnect from that feeling by going out and having a couple of drinks with a friend or whatever it might be. But it's to sit there and say, okay, what would do that? Right now I could pick up the phone and give a friend of mine a call. And that's why I say often it's the little things. Or if I want to experience more peace, sometimes it can be as simple as turning on some music, taking a moment, taking a few deep breaths. Maybe if it's in the evening, lighting a candle. Like it's sometimes the things to get to what we want to experience are so small that our mind just kind of dismisses it and says, well, no, if I don't have the crowd of 10 people around me that I'm obsessed with, and the feeling that it's so full that it's filling up the room. I would say think about experience, and then think small. What is the simplest thing that I could do right now to turn the volume up on that experience in my current reality? Sometimes 1% or 5% makes a massive difference. And then we keep doing that moment by moment, day by day, and it actually has the huge impact.
I love that. Thank you.
Good question. I like that one.
That great summary. Good point.
Cool.
Perfect. Okay. Any recommendations for us for a new guest, Rebecca?
What are you thinking? I know lots of happy, lovely people. I know plenty Mind Valley folks as well. There's always this wealth of beautiful people who are always in these learning communities that are exploring new things. So let me think, and I'll send them over to you.
Perfect. Okay. Hey, then I wish you a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
Go for a walk outside in the snow. Take your tea with you.
Tea and the dog.
I want to come for a walk in the snow. I don't know. Say again?
You should.
It is fully in my plans. So I have to see. I made a promise to myself that Mike and I are going to do an episode in Switzerland. Then we're going to go out with, well, I would call him a friend now. We're going to go out with his good friend, Bren. And I think you're going to have to come now as well, Rebecca. So.
Plan. Sounds like a plan. Hey, guys, you guys are brilliant. I love this conversation. It's just easy and fun and playful. And thank you also for sharing your experiences. For me, that also makes it more fun than just to have a monologue. So...
No, it was a mixed barbecue grill, right? So it was...
Hey, man.
Yeah. We
Nice way to bring it back.
We definitely did some grilling.
I didn't want to say two bulls and one chicken. No.
Em did not expert it, so well done. We don't have to... No, it's not like...
Look, we need to celebrate something, folks.
What?
You ready for this?
Ready.
We did not swear.
I mean, clearly, you're amazing. Look at us.
Okay.
Did you...
We just fixed the planet.
There we go. Amen.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Cheers, guys. Cheers.
Thanks. Don't forget to subscribe and comment if you have any questions. We're happy to answer. Follow us on Spotify and YouTube. Huh?
I just want, sorry, you can do that again and we can edit this. But just to that last question that I asked Rebecca around people that are struggling, if you are struggling, you don't know what to talk to, just leave us a comment in the DMs. Get in touch. We're here, right? There are no airs or graces about us. If we don't get back to you straight away, it's usually because, we have other stuff going on. But if you are desperate, if it is urgent, let us know. And then we can at least point you in the direction of resources that might be more immediate for you, right? So, that would be our call to action for you.
Good. I'm not repeating. We said we do everything authentic. There's no cut, no edit.
Like, subscribe, share, I think is what Mike was saying. Yeah.
And have a beautiful day.
Bye-bye. Okay. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Bye.